Edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the Big and Furry Bovine. Joining me on the panel, Brian and Derek Frisbee of DF Sports, as we prepare ourselves for battle on Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens. I want to start out the show a little differently rather than just doing an analytical kind of statistical thing, and talk again about media narratives and how this really ends up making this whole thing stupid. All right. I was just looking like I always do for, the sites that pick the games and how they're leaning. And I start reading these two back to back from sites that would be not like dinky sites like NFL.com, right? Here's what they say about the Browns game. The Ravens have the most clearly defined weakness that I can remember any team recent Ravens vintage teams having. They simply can't cover on the outside when Wink Martindale blitzes. Weakness that this version of the Browns is ill-equipped to attack, although you'd have thought that about Andy Dalton and Marquise Goodwin a week ago too. The potential return, which is now a cert return of Kareem Hunt, give the Browns a chance. But listen to this last line. But the quarterback disparity is too great, assuming Lamar Jackson's back. In other words, I guess Baker Mayfield is better than, who is it, Hundley? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Tyler Huntley. Or Brett, is it Tyler or Brett Huntley?
I don't know. But I mean, the quarterback disparity.
Brett is the one from UCLA.
Yeah.
So the disparity is too great between the quarterbacks. Therefore, of course, the Ravens win. Then the next one, get this. Lamar Jackson missed week 11, and Baker Mayfield is battling a series of nagging injuries. I stopped reading at that point. A goddamn bone fracture, a goddamn tear, goddamn knee sprains. I mean, this is nagging injuries, and they're talking about Lamar missing last week because of this mystery illness. I mean, what is this? Why this hatred? Why this, Then I'm looking at, Mary Kay Cabbagehead, who I just decided to refer to as a twatly woman. And they're doing a little video and they're saying, if you want to talk about banged up, you're talking about the Ravens. The Browns are healthy now, but it's the Ravens who are up against it. And it's like, are the Ravens still the Browns in Cleveland? And we just are living in an alternate reality here that the team didn't go and leave and go to Baltimore? Are we supposed to be cheering for the Ravens instead of the Browns? I can't figure it out. So this is, and then the game yesterday, which I'm sure a lot of you watched because it was Thanksgiving and you always watch the Detroit Lions on display in what had to be one of the worst football ever played. And neither team seemed to really, especially the Lions, just, they'd get a couple of first downs, then they get 2 holding calls and they'd be back. They had 2 second and 30 plus. And on one of them, on second and 30 and second and 30, Campbell handed the ball off. So, I'm looking at it and going, wow. Yeah, this is a bad game, man. It's really a bad game. And you got Matt Nagy, who, they said was going to be fired. And you got Dan Campbell, who hasn't won a game. But I would have thought that the announcers... I'm sorry?
In his defense, though, they did get a 57-yard run out of Swift. The Browns defense went, "Olay!" and gave him a fucking 57-yard run. So...
But you see, I would expect that the people who are being paid to broadcast the game would have a little bit more decorum than making fun of the teams that were playing the game. I mean, this is, it's sad to me. It's like the Lions, they showed the graphic. They hadn't made the playoffs since 91, not a championship since 57. I mean, that's 30 years since they won a playoff game. 30 years in the making. And they've had a multitude of problems in their front office. They've made bad decisions in the draft. But why make fun of the team? You know, they're saying, you know, when, you know, the Lions would jump off sides for no apparent reason, you know, and they focus in on the coach making the bitter beer face. And it's like, boy, it looks like he has some indigestion from his Thanksgiving dinner. and then the other thing was, well, maybe the problem here is that this team just doesn't know how to score touchdowns. I mean, this is the kind of color and play-by-play shit going on. And it's like, these teams will never dig out of sub-mediocrity. You just defeat and thwart a player's desire to go out of the field and play when these things are being said about them. It's not the player's fault that they have dumb management or they have a coach who runs the ball up the gut on 2nd and 32. And then there's this. Jared Goff has an offer. Did you see that statistic?
No.
He's over every coach he's played for, except with the Rams. He's 42-20 with the Rams. But with the other teams he's played for now, he's like 0-12. He's almost made up a full season of winlessness, okay? I remember when they were saying that Jared Goff was a good draft pick, that the Rams had done well. And, you know, so I look at the Rams now and I look at their record. And is their record with Matthew Stafford tremendously better than it was with Jared Goff?
Not really.
Not hugely, no. I mean, the guy was 42-20 in his years there. That's 4 years. That's an average of 10.5 wins a season. Ain't bad. Yet, he hasn't won anywhere else because the places he played were just so fucking pathetic. And honestly, Jared Goff has an underpowered arm. He has spindly legs. He's not particularly mobile. I didn't think he was a great quarterback coming out of college, and I thought that he would have durability issues. In a way, he's had trouble sticking with an individual team. Obviously, the Rams felt that they could do better and were willing to pay him for it. But when you get all of these things being said negatively about teams, the players do take it to heart. And other players in the league, they're watching the TV right along with you. And it's like, fuck, if I'm ever going to go there, I ain't going to go to Detroit. You know, I hope my little brother doesn't get drafted by Detroit, but I'm never going there as a free agent. And you can name the teams off. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the Detroit Lions. You know, you can name the teams. The Chicago Bears. Go through it, you know. The New Orleans Pelicans. No, sorry. But you get what I'm saying. Sacramento Kings, the Cleveland Cavaliers. You know, it's Ricky Rubio. It's like, Ricky Rubio's, I did not want to come to Cleveland. I find myself here, but I do not want to go to Cleveland. You know. So, I don't know. It's frustrating to watch and to listen to this nonsense. And we have to be objective here and say what we believe. Let's see what Brett has to say up here. He has every right to be a frustrated young man trying to make something of himself. Now, obviously, he could have handled things better, but he also has his reasons. Yeah, you know, the thing about Baker is he wears his emotions on his sleeve. And he's going to be the kind of guy that you're either going to embrace or you're not going to embrace. And maybe his brusque confidence and flag planting ability, it pisses people off, and it turns people off so that when he's not doing well, they feel the need to beat up on him. So
I didn't like how he handled the post game, not talking to the media. I don't care about it's shaking hands with the other players. That's always been something that I think maybe I've cared about too much. But to me, I
no, I
mean,
agree with you there. I mean,
somebody,
he could have
some,
spent another 1 minute on the field and
yeah.
been a good sport. I agree with
Well,
you.
and I think it's a little bit disrespectful because somebody was saying, what if I already forgot the quarterback's name who was playing for Detroit. But what if he's been watching Baker and has always been a fan of him and he gets a chance to play against him, never thought he would, and then he just, leaves. It's like, not that that's the case, but still, I mean, they played, it was 10-13. It wasn't like it was a blowout, and you're acting like I mean, I think Baker really dropped the ball there, and I think just taking your ball and going home, it was kind of a very immature thing for him to do.
Yeah, and I think the frustration of him knowing damn well that he played a crappy game, and he really did. He wasn't accurate. He wasn't up to standard, and he knew that in his heart. But again, he wears that frustration on his sleeve, and I really don't think that it's that he was trying to take anything away or disrespecting the Lions. I think he got caught up in the moment, and I think that he should have handled it better. No doubt about that. But, what we're talking about now, and I see that Joe Shipley's here ready to, pounce on whatever. And yeah, you have had a rough go of it, especially your pass rush hasn't been nearly as fierce. Maybe against a guy who's totally crippled, maybe you'll do much better. But I know that it's been a problem this year compared to years past because of injuries. Everybody in the league is getting hammered with injuries, and I've tried not to use that as an excuse, but just as a fact. Baker Mayfield, with shoulder fracture and shoulder tear and knee issues and now a groin issue, his mechanics are so screwed up. And the way that you want him to be effective, I don't know what's going on, T-Tosh, but your camera is in the wrong, it's sideways. He's in his car. Ah, I see. And let's see if I can add him to the stream. Okay, you there, T-Tosh? Ooh, it's cosmonaut video.
Yeah.
Russians on the moon. Yeah. Now, we're not going to be able to do this right now, T, because unfortunately, the connection that you have, the Wi-Fi is...
it's StreamYard mobily is not good.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not a good thing to use when you're in your car and out and about. But everyone's being affected by injuries across the league. And again, this notion about that we can equate Lamar Jackson's illness, whatever it is, to Baker Mayfield's fractures is insulting. And it's the kind of thing that it's just a setup. It's a setup like WWE setup. It's a setup that it's like, oh, this guy can't possibly. And so when he has a good game, it's like, oh my God, he's amazing. And it's like, no. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a good quarterback. He doesn't need that kind of hype. Doesn't need that. I mean, if he plays well, he plays well. If he plays poorly, I don't want to hear about his fucking illness because, we got a guy playing shoulder injuries, a foot injury, a knee injury, and a groin injury. I want to hear about that. The problem for Baker Mayfield is that he does best, which is to roll out and to give himself a little time that way to be able to get out of the pocket. Because of his height, he can see the field more clearly and accurately throw the ball is taken away from him. His mobility is all but shot. And he his body and contort it going this way and turning his body this way because you look at what happens to this off shoulder. Can't do it. So the plays are being called that are mundane, to say the least.
We're getting an echo. I don't know if you can hear that on T-Tosh.
I'm sorry, my volume the thing. I'll log off.
This is not. Yeah, I don't think this is going to work out.
No worries.
Alrighty.
No worries.
So,
bye-bye.
I find there are no excuses. Baker Mayfield is taking the field and he's saying, I'm going to come out and I'm going to play the best I can play, and that's what I can do. And the best he can do right now is not nearly as good as who he is and what he has done in the past. It's just a fact. And Lamar Jackson is coming off of, I don't know whether COVID has made him, I don't think he's really been sick. Okay, I'm just going to come right out and say it. I don't believe that he's been sick. I think that the team is protecting him because he's taken more punishment this year than he has in any other season he's played. And I think even a fan like Joe Shipley will acknowledge that when teams were blitzing him, and hitting him, he's not used to taking that kind of punishment. I think they're keeping him out of practices to keep him fresh, to get him through the year. And I'm not saying it's a bad strategy, but this I'm ill, no. Everson Griffen is ill, okay? And again,
what's going on there? Because I've not seen. I've heard a little bit, but I haven't seen what actually is going on. What's happened with him?
And Joe, look at Joe here. You better pray to the baby Jesus, Joe. What happened? Everson Griffen was at home alone, and neighbors heard him firing his gun inside his house. He called 911 and said that there was an intruder in his house trying to kill him, and that and so they sent people out. There was no intruder there. There was nobody hunting him down. He had a weapon. He was talking and telling them, this is my gun. It belongs to me. It's registered to me. I got my bullets, and he names where he bought his ammunition from. And then he brings his teammate, Dalvin Cook, into it and said, and Dalvin helped me buy the gun. And the guy clearly has mental distress. Could it be an early sign of CTE? Perhaps. But the thing that was
he just got way too high one night.
Yeah, or there's a drug problem, right? Whatever it is. And the thing that was crazy about it is that Mike Zimmer, upon hearing this, he didn't rule him out of the game on the weekend. It's like,
what?
I know, I'm serious. He goes on. They said, well, is he still going to be playing this weekend? He goes, well, I'm not sure.
That's hilarious.
I know. It's like, yeah. So that's what's happening with him, and it's a tough thing.
Poor Dalvin Cook's going, no, I didn't. Leave me out.
Hey, and there's more mature Ravens fan. Hey, be more Ravens Jr. You're my man. All right. And I'm willing to accept the outcome of the game, whatever the hell it is, because there are no excuses at the end of the day. You go out, you play your game, and if you're the Ravens and you cannot in your home stadium beat a Browns team that really, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is still not healthy. They say he might give it a go on Sunday. We don't have wide receivers. If you can't cover these guys, which every other team has been able to do, then you deserve to lose. This game is for the taking for the Ravens. They have a great advantage in the game, not only that it's a home field advantage, but that a crippled quarterback throwing to second and third string and slow receivers. And other teams have had no trouble shutting the Browns down because they can focus on the run game, which is our strength. And it's nice getting, Kareem Hunt back. But eventually they're just going to have to, at some point, pass the football. And we'll bring Bronk into the equation here.
Boo.
Yeah, and Yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't laugh at this anymore because quite honestly, we don't know. I mean, for a guy who's a professional grade athlete like that, who has had COVID twice, we don't know what damage that's done to him. So I'm not, you know, I just believe that there has been physical damage done to him because he's taken more hits this year to gain his 600 yards than he has in years past. And we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. And I'm just hoping, I'm hoping that the Browns show up, that the Browns play defense and they try to cover, and so that they can run blitzes and they can try to get after the quarterback. I don't know. I mean, it's a tall order. This is going to be a very, very tall order coming off of the way we played last week. And I'd be the first to admit, 1 week to the next, it keeps changing, you know? You think that there'd be some consistency, but there really isn't. And there's a point at which, you know, things dramatically go downhill. And I hope that the Browns can keep their spirits and their chances alive. That's, you know, kind of what I'm looking at. What's up, Bronk?
Well, who knows which team's going to show up, the Ravens and the Browns. I mean, the Browns have looked pretty good away from home a couple times. Then they had those absolute stinker games against New England. And, you know, I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. I think it should be a close game, but it could be a blowout either way.
Most of the people picking the game insults that they had about Baker Mayfield are calling the game pretty close. The thing is, the Browns, if they kind, are going to get crushed. All right. Because what will happen is they'll abandon their running game. Their passing game doesn't stay on the field long enough. That gives the other team a chance, more possessions. And that's exactly what happened with the Raven, with the Patriots. You know, and we don't have that comeback ability right now. And Brett, you're right. It does kind of, the Everson Griffen thing does kind of sound like meth. I remember when James Brown, the godfather of soul,
Ow!
Yeah, he had a public incident that was crazy like that. And the absolute delusion of it all.
Oh wow, his mugshot was absolutely hilarious.
Oh my God,
yeah, that was amazing. If you could find that and share that,
I don't feel good, huh?
No, he
looked more like Esther Roll.
Wow. He was having issues that day.
And yeah, Joe, I say it's for the taking because your team's spirits are at least buoyed. You could have very easily lost last week's game with your backup quarterback, but you know, your team came through, and a W is a W. And
yeah, but we won a stupid game with our backup quarterback, and you know, against the Broncos. So
right, but our starters just got blown off the field 45-7 and barely beat the Lions.
Correct.
So team is there for the taking, you know, and I understand that from the beginning of the year, the running backs have, you know, that you've lost ground in your ground game and that your pass coverage has been really poor, giving up 280 yards a game in passing game, which is very un-Ravens-esque. And your pass rush isn't as hardy and robust as it has been. But you're playing a team whose receivers can't get open. You'll see during the game what I'm talking about. You're watching the Ravens and you're not really watching the Browns closely. The Browns have a problem at their wide receiver position. They don't have separation speed. And therein lies a massive problem. And I don't think your cornerbacks are going to have as hard a go of it because we don't have a go-to guy. We got to share the ball with whoever happens to have a half a yard on somebody, and the ball has to be thrown by a crippled quarterback into a very narrow. So I think you do have a big advantage coming into, and a lot of it is confidence. The Browns right now, take it to the Browns at the beginning, they're going to be lost puppies. Believe me. And it's not a great thing. And I agree with Brett, having Kareem Hunt back, it does open up some passing game, because we sure as hell weren't using Demetric Felton like the coach said we were going to do in the beginning of the year. He was supposed to be a backup for Landry, and we didn't see him on the field getting his hands on the ball, except in a bizarre third down and short yardage running play from scrimmage. And he's proven he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Where I see having Hunt back could help the Browns is red zone.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have a definitive problem with, and play calling is part of it, is like very often we'll be down there like 1st and goal from the 4. And the first play will be a play action, and they'll try to throw to a tight end as an incomplete pass. Then it's a 2nd and 4. Then we'll run the ball and get stacked up at the line of scrimmage. Then it's 3rd and 4. We can't get anyone open. Kareem Hunt is a guy who can just push the pile. His leg strength is huge. And if you would feed him the ball 3 times from the 4, he will get in most times. Yeah, Bronk.
I mean, how many times have we gotten down to the red zone and exactly that scenario? But then Stefanski would go for it on 4th down, and we'd end up getting sacked. And they'd end up getting the ball on the 23-yard line when we made it all the way down to the 6 or the 7. And we'd fucking go for it on 4th down and get sacked. We should never have that happen again. Take the points.
It's like I see when these prosperity churches, and they're taking money from people, and they're stealing from people in essence, and they're taking the money and hoarding it themselves. Those people do not believe in God, because if you believed in God, there would be some form of retribution to somebody who would do something like that. You got to believe in something. And if you're a running team and you've put as much into your offensive line, I'm always shocked that the Browns haven't really used their, I look at the game last year that clinched our playoff position. We swept Baker Mayfield on the right side of the line. If you remember the play, I forget the name, what they called it.
Hunt got the key block.
What was it?
Maserati.
Was that what they called it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was just a power sweep with everybody out in front of him. Sometimes you got to just put your foot down and say, we're badder than you are, man. We're just physically tougher. And for some reason,
Kareem Hunt's block on that play. Go watch Kareem Hunt's block on that.
That's
play.
Right.
That's all you needed to see as far as who wanted it more.
And that's one of the things is sometimes you just have to go after somebody with your strength. And Tom, I agree with you here too. For all the talk about the Ravens have not had a great season.
Not at all.
And they've been in a lot of close games, and there have been times when it looked like, against the Dolphins, that they were figured out. And we'd never seen that before. So any game is a game, okay? They don't always end up exactly the way we think. Yeah, Bronk.
At the moment, the AFC North is like rock, paper, scissors, but a 4-way version of rock, paper, scissors. Browns beat the Bengals. Bengals beat the Ravens. Steelers beat the Bengals. Browns beat the, I mean, it's whether you stick with the rock, paper, or whatever you're going to stick with is whether who wins this game. That's why it is incredibly unpredictable.
6th round pick, B-More. He was a 6th round pick, and he was a huge 5-star high school recruit to Michigan.
Number 1 in the nation, I want to say.
Yeah. And whatever happened in his time in Michigan, he became a very forgotten figure. Let's just put it that way.
Urban Meyer did everything he could to get that man to Ohio State, and it just didn't work. He's from Michigan, I believe. And, yeah, I mean, it's not a whole I hate Michigan thing of me saying this. I think genuinely if he went to a program that had a half-decent quarterback, I think he could have been a lot better. I mean, It's a shame that his talent – I think he's still going to be a good player, but I think in college he could have been one of these elite of the elite guys. And he was just mismanaged and misused. And I think it's sad for him. Obviously, I'm happy to have him in Cleveland.
Well, you see some of the catches he's made and the opportunities that he's had, and he does catch the ball in traffic pretty damn well.
Correct.
And he gets off the ground and goes after the ball pretty damn well.
He doesn't have a bravery issue,
That's right. And now, of course, you've heard that Schwartz is out again, the concussion. He'll never run across the middle again. And that didn't happen. His concussion didn't happen. It came on a kickoff return.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of good points being made. And Kareem was the leading receiver, and which I'm not sure I would be boasting about. But
yeah, that's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing, but a factual one at that.
So what is happening with DPJ? Is he back this week, or what's going on? What's going on with people's?
That's a good question.
He's
still showing up on. He's still showing up on the injury report as questionable.
And he did do limited practice, and within the organization, they're hoping that he plays Sunday. But this is a guy who did his groin in warm-ups. So I'm not going to say.
Many players are hurt this year for everybody, and the star players are hurt this year. This has been horrific. We're going to end up with fucking practice squads playing in the end of December against each other.
What worries me, and because Tom is talking about this in the chat room, they can score. I don't know exactly what he's saying. What scares me about the Ravens is we can never cover their tight end. He's always open, wide in the middle of the field, and there is no.
Anders?
That's right.
Yeah.
He is always just a Browns killer, and it's between that and not being able to contain Lamar. That's the deal. And the problem that I have is not that the Ravens can score at will, but if we are behind and we keep giving the ball back to them by 3 and outing, or whatever, if there are turnovers involved, 6 and outing or whatever, it's they're gonna just in touches get the ball down the field. They have a field goal kicker who never misses. All right. He's exceptional. And like we had with Phil Dawson back when, they got a guy who's just deadly. So they're going to walk away with 3 every time, and their quarterback is going to gain yardage on scrambles and open up the field that way. What scares me is that we're just going to keep feeding them the ball back because we're not able to keep the game close. So I think, again, how you come out in the beginning of the game, and I don't mean it just on the first possession. You saw what happened when things got off to a good start against the Patriots, and then the Patriots offense just came out in the field and just went right down the field, and you could almost feel an energy drain from the Browns side of the field. And that's why I say that the Ravens are in a good position, because if they assert themselves early, then the Browns are going to feel sorry for themselves. They're going to hurt more, and that adrenaline won't kick in. So I think there is an advantage, and the home team should have some advantage. But both teams are playing against injury, and it hasn't been a perfect season for either team. And the Ravens aren't a dominant team. They have no chance to win the Super Bowl. So if you're thinking Super Bowl, that's not going to happen, but playoffs, yes, which gives them a chance to get there. But, you look at a team like Buffalo and you say to yourself,
now that's a schizophrenic team.
That's right. and all it takes in the playoffs is one lousy game and, you're out of there. So there's just a lot going on here.
Can we just all pray to the baby Jeebus that the referees do not decide Sunday night's game?
They always do.
I'm going to be fucking annoyed if I stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning and the referees have determined the outcome of the game.
Well, you know that
but
any call
either
that,
way.
if it's going to go one way, it's going to go Baltimore's way. It sure as hell ain't going to go Cleveland's way. That I can guarantee you. I hope the same thing that you hope, but I hope it every week. And I'd say during the course of it, what was a 16-game schedule now is a 17-game schedule, I can honestly say that there are 4 or 5 games that are clearly marred by bad officiating.
Oh, and the refs were awful yesterday. I mean, the Raiders, they had the weirdest fucking illegal procedure penalty where the center bobbed his head like they do at every snap. They got called for that. I mean, they were helping the Cowboys like crazy, these refs, and the Raiders still won, but that was all tainted too.
I missed the fight and the ejections.
Well, it did.
In that game.
Look, I got to tell you, Joe, I don't think the AFC North is the toughest in football.
Not anymore, not this year.
No, and you know that's kind of self-congratulatory in one respect. If you consider your season a great season, fans are entitled to their opinion. But I think the West, I mean, the Chargers could literally beat the Ravens in a heartbeat. The Raiders, who God only knows who they are and what they're about, are all over the place.
Or who the hell's going to be coaching them next week?
Yeah, and the Titans, there's another an injury that's going to affect them, as A.J. Brown is not going to be able to play against the Patriots. It's hard to put together who is the toughest division when the Pittsburgh Steelers are right in the heart of playoff football, and they're not any good. Correct. Okay? They're not any good.
They're not.
They're not good. I mean, and what does that say? That we aren't either.
Yeah.
And Joe, neither are you. The teams you lost to, this inexplicable. Not just that you lost, but how you lost to them. How did you lose to the Dolphins? How did you get blown out by the Bengals? How did that happen? How does that happen? You can't say it's a great season when you lose 41-17 to the Bengals.
Correct.
16. So, it was a 25-point win.
Oh, was it? Sorry, I was giving your team more credit, Joe.
There you go. There's Brian getting his corrections into that. He's like Tony Reale, only with no hair.
Yeah. So it's at best.
Well, it's always good to get your commentary, Frank.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
We're talking like DPJ is some great player. Yeah. DPJ would be the frosting on the cake.
Can we dig up some more obtuse facts from the black hole or brown hole of England?
Jeez, let me be nice. Be nice.
Hey, DPJ is a great receiver for Browns standards, considering we don't throw the damn
best
ball.
impact. You're absolutely right about this, but yeah, what should be frosting on the cake, we got no cake. So we're trying to make DPJ into something more than what he is. He's not a number one receiver, and that's obvious. You can see by the last number of games that are being played, we just, we don't have guys who are able to break open. We're just not open downfield. And there is no way to confuse a defense once they see you are slow and you don't run patterns very well.
Tony DeCalf actually said something insightful the other day where he said that the Browns had Jefferson and Thielen. Jesus Christ, we'd actually have a team then.
If what?
If we had if we had the Vikings wide receivers, we'd actually be kicking ass this year.
I mean, it always gets you. And I complained about this prior to the season, about Browns need help, wide receiver position. What if OBJ doesn't come back from his surgery? And what do we have out here? And, Jarvis Landry was hurt and banged up a lot last year. And I went over this before the season began. And we didn't draft any wide receivers except for Schwartz, who nobody believed was going to be an NFL receiver. So
didn't sign any either, other than bringing Higgins back.
That's right. We did nothing to upgrade our practice squad. In fact, we weakened our own practice squad. Davion Davis gone, Kadero Hodge gone, and we got nothing. Cupboards bare. So yeah, that's what happens. This is what happens. We say this every week, don't we, Browns gratification? You know, what? In one respect, you know what the worst part of this is that Baker has to keep playing because teams keep losing.
Correct.
I mean, if somebody would just grab the bull by the balls and just get done with it, you know, instead of having teams are having these mini losing streaks, you know, teams that are 5-2 and end up going, you know, 5-4, the Bengals. And then you have the Bills who just came crashing down out of nowhere when they looked like they were absolutely elite and guaranteed, and the Titans up and down and up and down. I mean, so all these teams are cluttered at 6-5 or 5-6. They're all cluttered, and even teams that are, you know, like the Steelers, who are 6-4-1. Huh?
Hooray, parity.
Yeah, it's socialism, isn't it, Brian?
Well, the parity in the league is partly injuries. It's partly teams that are incomplete, teams that are inconsistent. It's happening all over the league. Every time we say, if we lose, we got to get Baker out of there. We lose, somebody else loses, and we're still technically, mathematically in the race. Go ahead, Derek.
That's the worst part is it's like if one of these teams do look like they have stepped up and, like you said, taken the bull by the horns or whatever. I mean, it's like, can you believe it? Can you trust it? Because the very next week, like you said, the Buffalo Bills, they look great one week and the next week they lose in a game they should have blown the team out. It's like, how can you explain that? You can't.
Yeah. And AJ, why don't they blitz? And, you know, I think that
who knows?
Right now, the answer is JOK re-sprained his ankle. And I'm not, is anybody hearing even his name being mentioned?
Oh, my God.
Is Derek, is JOK on the out list?
I don't know. I haven't really been paying it to a whole lot of NFL stuff today.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I've heard nothing, which means that, you know, we're not talking about him. So, you know, and he's a major factor in your blitz. Troy Hill, who is actually back on the sidelines and limited, it shouldn't even be anywhere near a football field, predicated on the neck sprain. And what they call it a neck sprain, all they want is a fucking stinger. That was a goddamn stinger. And you saw that when his body goes limp like that, and they take him off the field, and he's like this. Yeah, the guy suffered a stinger. I mean, that's scary as fucking hell, man. That's neurological shit. And he's the other guy who's been a good blitzer for the team.
Great blitzer.
Yeah, and without those two guys, no blitz. So maybe that's the answer to your question. You know, I think the Ravens are good enough that they're not going to let Nick Chubb go off. You know,
well, if they key on Chubb, then
that's what they have to do. I mean, and Harbaugh is a defensive-minded coach. He knows that.
But that's why Hunt is so much more important to have.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they're going to be stacking the line of scrimmage to stop the run.
What's Kareem Hunt's role going to be? I mean, we know he's back, but they're not going to have him playing the full game. He's going to be on a snap count, I would imagine.
Sure. And
so,
but again, if you look at how the load has been divided up in weeks past, I mean, it was not at all unusual for Kareem Hunt to be out on the field 15 plays, 17 snaps, that kind of thing. I mean, and that's what I would expect to see, is that he'd come in specialty situations as a short yardage guy, as a goal line guy, and that could be it. I don't know. But they're not going to let Nick Chubb beat him. Harbaugh's not going to allow that to happen. They're going to stack the box, and they're going to say, beat us. And even though our secondary, meaning the Ravens secondary, I'm speaking as Harbaugh, is banged up, nicked up, and giving up yardage, the Browns aren't taking advantage of that against other teams. So you will take your at. The problem with that is if Baker were to come out and be dangerous and thread some throws and get some guys open downfield, it could create a problem for the Ravens. If there is some semblance of balance, then you can't key so much on Nick Chubb. It gives meaning. If Baker Mayfield were able to just sprint out and pass, if he was able to play action and bolt out to the left or to the right and really roll out and do what he does with mechanically, then yes, it would be a problem for the Ravens. But he can't do those things. He's stuck in the pocket. Yeah, Bronk.
So is our offensive line intact this week then for the first time?
Yes, Conklin's back on the right side. So we hopefully won't be seeing Hance, but, I wouldn't be surprised if Conklin grabs his elbow in the first quarter. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. And this is why, AJ, I say these shows are about analyzing things, possibilities, opinions. Prognostication this year, I can't believe that gamblers are this year. Okay? I can't believe. I think the house is probably.
The house is fucking raking it in.
Yeah, that's what I think. But man, and again, this is the haughty attitude that some Ravens fans have. Lamar is a really good quarterback. So is Baker Mayfield. You're seeing Baker Mayfield at his worst. One day, you will see Lamar at his worst. You will see him when he's crippled and he can't run. And when that happens, and he turns into Randall Cunningham, passing from the pocket, and suddenly he's down to a 58 completion percentage, which he will be, and he will be throwing interceptions, then you will shut your yap. You can't compare apples and broken apples, rotten apples. Baker Mayfield is not Baker Mayfield. He's not the same guy as he was last year physically. And that's not a complaint. That's just a fact. And if your guy had as many, consecutive injuries and concurrent injuries, you'd be talking about it too, my man. You'd be talking about it.
Well, I mean, Baker's like Bertie Kosar towards the end right now. I mean, Kosar could hardly move, throw, run, 1991, 92.
Yeah, what do you think about the, and I really don't have an opinion, so I'm genuinely asking you, what do you think about the reports that have come out that some of the locker rooms starting to turn on Baker too? Do you believe that?
Speak for, I would tend to think that the offensive linemen are in Baker's corner. I can gather. I think that it was pretty obvious that Higgins was in OBJ's corner. And I think that there was something between OBJ and Baker, and people pick sides. So I think Landry is a professional, but I think that Landry has recently said he's not seeing the ball enough. I do believe that cancer divides. So, yeah, I would say that if you were on OBJ's side, so to speak, then you would be against Baker. Yep. I think that there is an element of that. And
so what do you think? What do you think from there on, heading into the offseason, if the Browns stick with Baker, do you think they're going to try to purge some of these guys?
Well, again, I think that the wide receivers who might be complaining, I mean, first of all, they may be getting more of a chance because OBJ is gone. I don't know where OBJ made some great impact because he is a me-first guy who I don't remember hearing endearing things from people in New York when he left saying, oh my God, what a great humanitarian and great human being. I don't remember hearing that. So I do think that there are players who are always teeter-tottering between discipline and a lack of discipline. And a guy like OBJ going rogue and running his own patterns and complaining about things publicly can easily drag this teeter-totter into the side of negativity. And some of those players will end up siding against Baker Mayfield. And again, Baker Mayfield probably did not hide his frustrations in the locker room for OBJ. In fact, I saw a video after a game where OBJ hadn't played. He was still coming back from being injured, and he was doing some stupid dance in the locker room.
Yeah, I sent that to you.
Yeah, and Baker just shaking his head like, that's the wrong way to go about this, son. You know, so I know there's something there, and I think that, yeah, I think there is some dissension and friction. Absolutely. And I think that friction will only, that's why I'm saying if the Ravens come out and pound our ass, we'll fall down faster than dominoes, because there is a divisiveness there. I believe it's present. And your answer, what do we do next year? You get rid of the people who don't want to be in Cleveland. Get rid of them. You got to draft wide receivers. You got to, you got to acknowledge that you're a run first team and that you've got to develop young receivers, but you've got to have good pass protection and run blocking. And you've got to get a defensive coordinator in who can keep the games close so that teams don't score 45 points against you. That's pretty much it.
Do you think now we talked about the players, do you think within the coaching staff there is I don't want to say a bias against Baker, but do you think that there's a real disbelief in him as far as the coaching staff goes?
I believe that AVP believes that Baker Mayfield does not give the Browns the best chance to win right now.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I think because with Case Keenum warming up, like you said, it doesn't really matter. You know, it was likely AVP, but regardless, somebody purposely did not want Baker to remain in the game. So it seems like this is a organizational issue. So whatever the decision, is as far as Baker long term, I think they're going to have to clean up the other side whenever that decision gets made, regardless.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues, and AVP is a guy who's probably frustrated because the play calling has been very inconsistent, and he has not gotten his chance. So in essence, if Jarvis Landry is saying, I'm not seeing the ball enough, if OBJ said, I'm not seeing the ball enough, AVP is probably saying, well, I'm not getting an opportunity enough. And this is what happens, and it was funny watching the Lions and the Bears play. And the one thing that came up was Dan Campbell talking about his role, the fact that in the last 3 games or 4 games, he's been calling all the plays. And he said how much of almost like a fire drill the whole thing is. There's so much going on. He's got so many responsibilities. And my mind was like, well, fuck Dan Campbell. I mean, talent on the field. But I'm thinking of Kevin Stefanski, and I'm saying this self-initiative to do everything himself has hurt the team. And I would agree with AVP that there should be an offensive coordinator who is calling plays and who has a real impact on what we're doing. I don't think that AVP is against Baker Mayfield. I think that he is against Kevin Stefanski, frustrated, and is in disagreement that Baker gives the Browns the best chance of winning because of his injuries. That's what I think. So, Pat, you're never going to miss all the doom and gloomers. You're never going to miss all of them. The bottom line is that I think that there is some friction within the organization, and nothing is better for friction than wins. But the problem is losses reopen wounds, and you got to have unity. You have a coaching staff; it's got to be a unified coaching staff, and it's got to come from delegation. The thing I don't understand is that Kevin Stefanski just turns over the defense to Joe Woods, who doesn't know what in the hell he's doing.
Do you think that AVP potentially gets moved in the offseason?
I think he will leave.
Yeah, I think he'll leave.
I think that he'll be done. Absolutely.
I think that sucks, but I think it's inevitable. I think as long as Stefanski's the head coach, he'll.
Yeah, I think that nothing changes. Nothing changes. I mean, this is a problem and will continue to be a problem until the coach learns to delegate. By to Joe Woods, and we're forced to endure articles on the internet saying, why are the Browns dropping Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney into coverage? I mean, there are all kinds of really weird things going on that have no answers, or questions with no answers. And it's Joe Woods. He's erratic and he's not capable with what he's doing. He failed at his last opportunity. He's failed again. And a bigger for Mayfield, who's trying to fight through injuries and not playing his best football because of it, Joe Woods doesn't have that excuse. He has all of his mental faculties, and he's misusing the tools that he has. So he's going to have to go. So there could be a lot of turnover, in the coaching staff. Part of it will be political. Part of it will be personal.
Yeah, I think what you said a while ago, a couple weeks ago, whatever, about the Browns being closer to a rebuild, I think you're seeing that unfold here, and the rebuild is not players. I think it's
coaching staff.
Yes, coaching staff, stability, how the organization is going to be
maybe
ran.
Some front office people too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. JOK practice Wednesday. I don't know what he did. It was the same ankle that he hurt. I mean, and that was a high ankle sprain, folks. God only knows. God only knows. It's going to be tough. We got to pick the game. We're getting up to the end of the hour. We're going to start with Bronk. Bronk?
Wow. Well, only because...
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, buddy.
Only because we got our offensive line and we got our main running backs back. I'm going to pick the Browns 23-18. And I'm also going to pick Ohio State 37, Michigan 20.
Interesting. Derek?
I don't feel good about this Browns-Ravens game. I don't know if it's just we've reached the point where depression has set in as Browns fans, but I think this is going to be a little bit of a rough one. I like the Ravens to win. Well, I don't like the Ravens to win, but I think the Ravens are going to win probably, I'm going to say 24-17. As far as the Ohio State game, give me 41-28 Buckeyes.
Win's a win, man.
Brian?
With Chubb and Hunt, I think there's a chance that the Browns can pull this one out. And it's not going to be a barn burner, but I think it's going to be more like 23-17.
Is that what I said? I said 23-18, I think. Well done, Brian.
Well, because the defense, even though they lost to the Steelers, they only gave up 15 points. They've been giving up very low points this whole time. So I think that the defense is still going to be stout, especially if JOK can play at least the first half and keep the game close.
Wow, Joe Shipley's going big.
Yeah. I mean, and again, and this is the guy who's been ripping me in the chat room for saying that you have a distinct advantage in the game. I don't want to pick the game. I really don't want to, because
don't bet on it, man.
It's one of these things that, does anybody know what the weather is going to be like? Joe, do you have the weather forecast in Baltimore for Sunday? Are we looking at wet conditions, windy conditions, anything that would alter passing games? There are things that I have not gotten to checking. So if somebody right now, before I sign off, could check on what the weather forecast is going to be on Sunday in Baltimore, that might give us some indication.
Give me 2 seconds. course, it's coming up Baltimore, Ohio.
It's me a cow. It's an act, buddy.
Okay.
39 and no rain. Blind melon.
It says rain 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, but other than that, not bad. Partly cloudy.
Yep. All right. It's
Well,
going to
that's
be
good ground.
clear.
Yeah,
and
the
35
high for the
degrees.
day is going to be 52. The low is going to be 35.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Joe. Thanks to everybody in the chat room, for Tom for jumping in on this. And mild winds. So, there will be, again, no excuses.
It should be in the 40s at kickoff.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, but to pick a game like this, I would be very happy if this were a close game, and I would be very happy if the final score was like 27-24. And I'd be very happy if the Browns won 27-24. All right? The game has to be kept close. The Browns are not going to make some run from behind on this. This is something that the Browns may have to, if they do win, hold on. And that means they're going to have to use clock. They're going to have to use their running game. They're going to have to use controlled offense. I think the advantage goes to the Ravens, but I'm not saying that it's impossible that the Browns would win. Nothing this year is impossible. And I don't believe we are a worse team than the Ravens. But I think when you get hurt in the most important position on the field, and if you took Lamar Jackson away from the Ravens, if you basically put him on the field and said, okay, Lamar, you can't sprint out, you can't run out of the pocket, you've just got to stay in the pocket and throw the ball downfield, I think that, or hand off and not be able to pull the ball back in and run, the zone read yourself. And it would be very different for the Ravens. I think that, it's no different than when you see Kevin Durant go down with a ACL injury, or a tendon tear, Achilles tear, or you see, major talents going down for the season. The quarterback position is it, man. And if you had that much injury, it's going to affect performance. It's going to force your player to do things that he's not best at. He has to beat you with whatever second and third best, not with what he does best.
Well, I think like 10 years from now, the quarterbacks will be wearing a high-vis vest. You won't be able to touch them. It'll be like practice. I mean, there's going to be rule changes to stop this like massive run of injuries that's happening.
Before I get out of here, I want to mention a couple of things. One, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, it didn't practice today because of his toe.
Did you see his profile picture on Twitter is now his big toe?
Yeah. I think that I've heard enough of Aaron Rodgers, and I think somebody should blindside him, put him out of his misery. Another thing that I want to say that was one of the most hilarious, fun moments, and nobody watched it but me. ESPN was showing a basketball game between number 4 Kansas, University of Kansas Jayhawks, and the University of Dayton Flyers. The Flyers are 2-3 this year, and they lost to Liscombe, and they lost to UMass Lowell campus. Honest to God.
Wow.
This Flyers team is not a good Dayton basketball team. And they're in an invitational, ESPN invitational tournament. They were down 15 points. They fought their way back in the game. 7 points, frittered that lead away down the stretch. Kansas takes the lead. Kansas has the ball with the lead. Their center tries to go to the basket, commits an offensive foul. The Flyers have the ball. Meanwhile, we got Dickie V, who's having chemotherapy done, broadcasting the game, which was great to hear Dickie out there doing his thing. And he's saying, I'll try to do his voice now. He's not really here. He's kind of like this now. He kind of talks like this now. And you got to get that kind of crack in your voice saying, this could be the biggest upset. This could be the biggest upset this basketball season. I'm going, Jesus Christ, what do we got going here? I mean, the Flyers are like, they got the ball with like 12 seconds left. Their point guard goes to the basket, lays the ball up, and the Kansas guy swats the layup, blocks the thing into the corner, and the ball ends up in the hands of an 18-year-old freshman kid. And it's like, you got the ball in your hand, son. What are you going to do with it? He just dribbles it across the middle of the lane and throws the ball up with his left hand way up in the air, and it doinks off the rim, off the backboard, and into the net. It's good. It was the most amazing thing. It was like, that brought a real smile to my face. It's like, University of Dayton Flyers just beat the Rock Chalk Jayhawks. It was like, and you gotta, if you could find the replay of that game, watch the last shot. It is, in my mind, the ugliest shot that was a game winner that I've ever seen. It was like the ball got into the freshman's hands, and it's like, no, and he just threw the thing up. It was just awesome. So
the only thing that could top that was Juwan Howard signing his extension and then immediately losing.
Right.
Or Mel Tucker.
Yeah, here as far as the Buckeyes are concerned, boy, the Buckeyes right now are on a roll. And it's going to be, but you can throw everything out. It's Ohio State, Michigan. You never know.
Hey, can I say something quick about this?
Sure.
Michigan can win this game. They just got to have things go right. And I don't know if that's enough. So, I said 41-28.
They're not going to score with the Buckeyes. If the Buckeyes are scoring 40-plus points, Michigan ain't going to be there with them.
But the only chance they have to win, and I think it's, maybe it sounds too simple, but number one, they have to get home to C.J. Stroud. DeJuan Jones, our right tackle, is a giant man, but he's not the most technical tackle. If they can take advantage of him and get home and get C.J. uncomfortable, they have to do that to limit Ohio State's offense. Michigan offensively has to be able to run the football. That way they can, they kind of do what the Browns do in a sense of run first and then take advantage of the pass game off of that. If they can't run the football, it's over. You might as well forget about it. They can't score toe-to-toe with Ohio State. I think it's that simple. It's almost like a Conor McGregor fight. The longer you can hang in, the better chance you got.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other thing that we never really talk about, we're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And you just don't know, how they're going to come out on the field, and they can be sky high and everything goes their way, or flat as a pancake. And we've seen Ohio State both ways, where they just looked untouchable, and other games where they looked positively, human. So it's going to be a fun game to watch.
They've grown a lot.
Oh, they sure have. They've gotten better as the season's progressed. And right now, going into this game, it's an excellent game, but Ohio State, because Michigan's lost to Michigan State, Ohio State is the favorite in this game.
And one thing to pay attention to, the Big Ten is going to want Ohio State to win this game because that's their best chance as far as playoffs. So,
all right, everybody, I'm going to be back with you for halftime on Sunday night, but not a post game. But don't worry, Monday is the next day, and we'll be on the air doing our version of the post-game show after the fact. So go Browns. Let's hope it works out for us. Let's hope that nobody really gets hurt badly on the field tomorrow, and let's hope that it's a good, entertaining, competitive game. Thanks to Brian, to Derek, to Bronk, to Joe Shipley, and to
Cast of Thousands.
Tiny Tim, too. Everybody, have yourself a good evening, a good weekend, and enjoy the Buckeyes tomorrow. Until Sunday at halftime, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.